There we go. So key principle of the month. The reason that it's held at the start of the month is so that you can carry what we discover here, what we talk about here, through with you for the whole month, right? So it's like the theme of the month. It's something for you to focus on, to take notice of, to notice where you're applying these things and where you perhaps haven't been, so that's the purpose of it. And of course, in 2 weeks, we'll have a debrief, right? So I'm going to book that event. So keep an eye out. I haven't quite created it yet because I'll be on the other side of the earth at that time. So I'm still navigating time zones and where I'm going to be. But in about 2 weeks, we're going to have a debrief about what this is about. So today's theme will be will. But before we go into that, let's have just 2 or 3 fairly short shares. We don't want your whole life story because we do have something else to get on with, but short shares about what's landing for you. What are you creating? What have you realized in the past week or two? Who'd love to kick us off and bring us into the space? Kay.
Yes, thank you.
Hi.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm very jet lagged. I actually put my alarm to attend this because I've just been on holiday, and so I haven't done my choices for about 2 weeks, only half-heartedly, and I've so noticed that everything changes. Like my whole energy changes to a different space, and I feel very out of creating. So I thought, oh, no matter how tired I am, I need to pick back up where I left. And so that's why I'm here. And the will, I think that will be a very good topic for me to shoot back in. But literally, I go back into ego space very easily and quickly, and everything changes. So doing the work daily is so key. It's so key to me.
Yes, thank you, Kay. And you obviously used your will to bring yourself here, right? You decided this is, yeah.
Very hard.
So, well, it's not hard, right? When you don't give yourself the option, it's not hard. And good on you for doing that, right? And great point. Yes, the moment that, you don't do your choices for a day and it's like, oh, yeah, nothing's changed. You don't do them for 2 or 3 or 4 days. You go, no, life's still okay. I'm still alive, right? And sometime later, you really notice the effects. Yeah, great point. Thanks, Kay. All right, let's have one more. Did I see your hand up, Carolyn? Yes. Welcome. Good to see you.
Hello. It's lovely to see you too. It's warm over here.
It is here too.
I've been tracking my patterns over the last 4 or 5 weeks. Like since Alchemy for Success, I've been tracking my patterns from doing the dance. And it is absolutely fascinating, bringing it right back to watching. I love the analogy of it being like a roundabout and seeing the exit points of the roundabout and making those choices, or being able to just notice and see what step it is out of my 17 to 23 or whatever it is, and being able to exit. And that's been fascinating, just watching myself and being able to make choices around it. But it's just so interesting.
Beautiful. Yeah, that awareness is great. And as you say, awareness is great, but it's only step 1, right? Step 2 is to exit that roundabout or hamster wheel or whatever it is that you picture it as. Yeah, great point. Thanks, Carolyn. All right, let's have maybe one more because there's still people coming in. There's lots of people coming in today, so we'll have one more share before we kick off. Ursula, good to see you. Are you back in Oz? Or are you still on the other side of the world?
I am back in Oz, and I'm terribly jet lagged too. I just would like to briefly share that this was my first journey, my first travel since I started doing William's work. And it's been amazing, that awareness, that holding the end result, traveling to many countries, amazing travel with my daughters, and holding the end result at all times, and nothing went wrong. Like everything as I planned. I've lost my shits a few times, but I quickly got back, I've realized, okay, well, I'm not, I'm terribly in my victim now. Like, for example, getting upset where in France skiing, and they can't make tea with lemon. So I was getting a water with lemon, and I couldn't then brew the tea. And eventually I got like upset, and I thought, why? Like, why would I even get upset? So very quickly I get back to, I'm aware. That's the thing. I'm aware, things went wrong, maybe, or where potentially could be going wrong, but I just really got back to my, creative, orientation, and hold my result, and kind of really strongly believe that no matter what, I'll get on that plane, even so I'm late, even so I'm driving in a fog in the UK and I cannot see the thing, and the screen wiper fluid frozen completely. And yeah, I did it. I just got there on time, and all the time. So I believe this is just amazing difference. Amazing results.
That's awesome. Thanks, Ursula. Thanks for sharing. And all those shares, I mean, how pertinent. Of course they are, because we're all creating, right? But it's all about using your will. It's about noticing and then using your will to come back. So let's get on with today's key principle of the month, which is, of course, will. But before we do, just take a moment to really come into this space, right? Because there's lots of people here. We've got a lot of attendees, and it's really nice to just connect. So if you all put your energy into the space and just feel the surface that you're sitting on, and at the same time, look around your screen, see who you're here with, and really connect. And while you're doing that, set an intention for yourself, because you'll get from this what you intend to get. That's how it works. You'll get what you intend to get. So allow an intention to come to you. Beautiful. And also choose to be of service. Choose to be of service to yourself, to your highest good, which is the highest good, and choose to be of service to everybody else here. And of course, all the people who are watching the recording. Welcome, people who are watching the recording. We're holding this space for you to have this experience as well. So will, why is it important? Why is this an important principle to get grasp of? Look, to me, to my mind, it's one of the most, I mean, they're all important, but will, as we've seen from the shares already, is one of the most important principles to get grasp of, because there's a functional way and a dysfunctional way of using will. And most people use it dysfunctionally. Mostly it's unconscious, right? Mostly we just default, as Kay was saying, I just go back to the default mode. We all do. I was going to have a little joke with you, Kay, but I didn't at the time. I was going to say, oh, yes, you're the only one that defaults back to your egoic orientation. Of course we all do, right? So there's a functional and a dysfunctional way of using will. And what I observe and what happens is that mostly we use it dysfunctionally. A lot of the time it's unconscious, but often, even with awareness, people often use their will dysfunctionally, just because that's how we're wired up, right? And also because a lot of the time, what I see is that people don't really know the difference between the functional and the dysfunctional way of using their will. So my end result for you today is that by the end of this, you'll have a pretty clear distinction between what the functional way of using will is and what the dysfunctional way is. And also an awareness, you'll be able to feel it in your body when you're in one and when you're in the other. It's kind of like feeling you're the victim and the creator. You know, you eventually with practice get to know as you're going through your day when you're in one and when you're in the other. So that's my end result for you today, right? What happens if you use your will dysfunctionally? What could happen if you use your will dysfunctionally? At best, you're wasting your time and energy, right? So that's the best case scenario is that you're just wasting time, wasting energy, and you might be creating results, but it's at a cost. I don't know how many of you who's heard the saying that 20% of effort creates 80% of results. Has anyone heard that? It's known in business. It's just a law. I don't know if those percentages are accurate, but I've heard it said in many circles, right? So if you use your will dysfunctionally, you're doing the opposite. You're doing 80% of effort to create 20% of results, right? So that's at best. Now, at worst, what you're actually doing is moving away from what you'd love, right? And that's not what you want, because if you're using your will, if you're putting your energy into something, you want to get the results that are going to lead you towards your land of plenty, towards what you'd love. You don't want to wake up a year later and go, oh, wow, I'm actually further away. I've been using my will dysfunctionally. And it happens, right? We're here, one of the natural success values is truth. We're here for the truth. So I'm going to give you the truth. It happens a lot. I've seen it time and time again where, people just get lost, right? And then I touch base with them 6 months later, a year later, and they're not only where they were before, on that same hamster wheel, just done another cycle around the same diamond hamster wheel. So not only are they in the same place, but because it's been another year, they feel worse about it. So they've actually moved further away from their end result, from their truth. So we don't want that, right? So whatever's the intention you set for yourself before, great, bring that to mind. And also set yourself an intention that you'll have by the end of this hour and a bit that we've got together, that you'll have a pretty good idea of the difference between the two, and that you will have the will to use your will functionally. Right? So we all know the alchemical structure. Negredo, albedo, rubedo, truth, love, wisdom, right? But the alchemical structure is truth, love, wisdom. Then we've got the three aspects of it. So we've got the negredo, where we acknowledge the truth of what's going on, right? Our shadow. Then we've got albedo, where we rise up into the higher self, out of our egoic thoughts and feelings, definitions and meanings, and into a higher self, where we can be removed from that and aligned or in touch with our true end result. And then there's rubedo, right? So rubedo is the action that you take to move you towards your land of plenty. Now, what often happens, now albedo's a really nice place, right? So everybody loves the second part of alchemy. Carolyn just mentioned alchemy, right? And the first 3 days, day 3 is normally pretty heavy. I can see you having a little smile there, right? No matter how many times you've done it, it's like you get to day 3 and it's like, oof, are we there yet? Right? But the second part of alchemy, where you really learn how to rise, how to neutralize your shadow and rise into albedo, into the higher, is a wonderful place. And people love it. And unfortunately, what I often see is that people get so high on the albedo that they don't even go on to do creative warrior, because they go, oh, this is a nice place, I don't need anything else, right? And of course, creative warrior is all about rubedo. It's about applying the red tincture. It's about taking the actions that are going to lead you to your land of plenty. Right? So it's all lovely to see the land of plenty and be in that lovely whiteness and the lightness of that, then there are actions that need to be taken to actually get you there, right? Otherwise, you're in the camp of the vision boarding. You know, I'll just put this on a board and put it on a picture behind me as this lovely, oh, you probably can't see because there's reflections, Moroccan or Greek, you know, thing. Just because I've got that hanging on a wall behind me doesn't mean that that's going to happen for me, that I'm going to own that house, right? That door belongs to. So Albedo is a lovely place, but then there's the action. And what happens when we apply will dysfunctionally is that we take action not from albedo. We don't take action that's directed from this higher place. We're taking action from our negredo. Right? We're actually applying rubedo to negredo, if you like. So we're taking action to resolve our thoughts, feelings, definitions, and meanings. And it can be quite, what's the word? Seductive, right? You can actually very easily convince yourself that because you're doing these things and you're taking these actions, and it's really easy to convince yourself that they're leading towards your land of plenty, but they're not. So why would you? Why would someone take action that isn't directed from albedo, that isn't coming from your heart, that isn't coming from that place of innocence, right? Why would you take action that isn't leading you to your land of plenty? And the answer is because it's known, right? It feels comfortable. It's familiar, and it's what you've always done, right? It feels normal. It feels like, yeah, that's what you do, right? We can actually convince ourselves. It's actually super easy to convince yourself that this is what everybody does, right? Because we assume, let's say you're number 3 on the Enneagram, or you've got some number 3 traits. So you're really into achieving and doing stuff and doing a lot and climbing the ladder, you know, and it's all about image and how you appear. You're going to be convinced that everybody else in the world is focused on that, right? So while you're doing all those things, you're going to be convinced that that's how it works, right? That's how you do things. Why wouldn't you, right? So this is what happens. You basically become comfortable with how things are and how you do things, and it's so familiar that you convince yourself that this is how it is, this is how it works, this is how you get to your end results, right? And it's actually all about resolving tension. There's another way that that's slightly related, but it's a little bit different, that I see people applying, taking action from the wrong place and applying their will dysfunctionally. And that is by preparing, right? So catering to conditions, catering to other people, making sure that certain things don't happen, making sure that certain things do happen, trying to control, you know, so preparing to go into the land of plenty rather than actually going directly for the land of plenty, right? Rather than taking actions that will take you directly there. And I've got to say, like, without guidance, and that's why this space is really awesome, right? So without guidance, without someone outside of yourself to keep you on that edge, you'll get insights about yourself, right? So today, this is more of a masterclass, so we're not going to be doing breakout rooms, but you will get some insights for yourself and about yourself, right? But even when you do sessions with breakout rooms where you're getting readings, right, it really does take that other person to see the truth of what's going on for you, because you're going to be so convinced, you're going to be so stuck in your personality that you'll think that what you're doing is normal, it's the way to go. And my point here is that what often happens is that people get realizations about themselves, but they're not full realizations, right? Because we have this personality. Or people go and have readings and get insights from others, but then still go home or hop off the Zoom call and convince themselves to change what they got in the reading, right? Because the default, the personality, the resolving our personality and the egoic agenda just feels so normal, right? Because we formed it, we formed that way of doing things. We were designed that way of doing things. We're designed that way of being in the world to reduce our anxiety, right? To resolve tension, right? So it feels like, the thing to do. So I hope you've all got that. I know that I went on about that for a bit, but it's really important to establish that foundation, right? Of how seductive it is to come back in, right? So let's have a little chat, because I want to co-create this key principle of the month, because it's your space, right? So let's have a little bit of a chat, not so much about what I've talked about. That was more setting up the foundation of the dysfunctional way of doing it, the antithesis, if you like, the way that it doesn't work. But let's talk about the premise and define what it is that we're talking about here, right? So the premise for today is it takes will to live from your heart. It takes will to live from your heart. And will, as I said before, is often used dysfunctionally. It's misused to force end results, or to take steps that are driven by ego or by logic, right? Something that feels logical, or something that's going to make you feel better. So you convince yourself that it must be the right way to go. Right? But will can be used functionally. It can be used to open us, right? So when you can apply will to open, to observe, to follow the obvious, that's when you get to receive your heart. That's when you get to receive the true action steps, and you get to receive what's aligned with your true nature and your purpose here. Right? So that's what we'll get into later on in this session. But before we start, if we're going to talk about will, let's define will. What is it? What's will? I know that William has a couple of definitions, but let's see what you think it is, because it's, sometimes you hear a definition, but you don't really get what it means. So let's have a couple of stabs at what will is. What does it mean? And just have a stab at it. That's just the first thing, say do a reading on the word will. What comes to you? What do you get? And Ed, would you mind going through the screens? Because I think we're on almost 3 screens, or at least 2 screens. To see if there's any hands up, because it's going to distract me if I'm scrolling. Thank you.
Polly has a hand up.
Will Polly and then Vicky. Go, Polly.
Will is to resist the temptation of going the known way, the known path, or the easy path.
All right. So to resist the temptation of going the easy path. Thanks, Polly. Vicky, how would you define will?
I thought of will as the desire to achieve or gain something, but also the awareness to stay on track and follow through.
Yeah, they're both close.
Close, yeah.
However, there is an egoic twist to both. So I'll speak to that now before we hear from somebody else. Thanks, Vicky, and thanks, Polly, for sharing. Because it's, as I said, I want to co-create this, right? And it's good to tease these things out. As I said, it can be very seductive and insidious until you realize the difference, and then it's really easy to tell. So, Polly, you said the will, to want to achieve something, the desire to achieve something, right? And not take the easy path. And Vicky, you said something very, very similar, along similar lines, right? And again, there can be an element of that where you can be achieving something that's not actually aligned with where you're going, right? So you can see if you saw the banner for this event, it was actually two paths, right? And you can see how will can be used this way or that way. Polly, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I wanted to paraphrase. For example, I am in a situation where I create one of my choices, which is connected to creating women's group. And this is the third edition that I'm going to create. And the tension becomes much bigger. And the temptation is to do more, to convince people more to roll in, whereas my bridge is it was preclude yourself, like do nothing, just step away. And here the temptation is to resist. The temptation is not to do another thing, which comes from
Yes, exactly.
This is what I meant by will, to stay in this position, which came from my bridge.
Yeah, so you're saying the will to hold the tension, right?
Yeah.
And not default into doing more or trying to, yeah, absolutely. Great one. Thanks, Polly. Yeah. Let's have one more. Who else would like to share about what is will? Good. You're already unmuted.
Who, me? Yeah.
Yeah, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did. I put my hand up. I think I've been in a training. I think I've been in a training recently because it just came to me like will is the mechanism which we assign energy towards what we're going for, whether it be functional or dysfunctional.
Yeah. Yeah. It absolutely is. And that is the definition in the alchemy workbook, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. And Margaret, I saw your hand up. Is that what you were going to say or speak to that? Yeah, go for it.
Same. It's the power of action. Will is the power. Irrespective of where you point it, it's the power to act.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So will is awesome. Yes. Was there more or are you complete with that? Yeah. So it is the power. It's the mechanism of assigning power. So what's power? Because then it's the mechanism of assigning power. But then we go, okay, so there's different places you can assign power. And what does the word power mean? How do you assign power? And for me, power is it is what it is. It's assigning focus, right? It's going, okay, what am I going to focus on? That's really what it is. And it's about assigning power away from, if you're going to be a creator, of course, away from your fear-based agenda and onto what truly matters. Right? That's basically what it is. It's like it's a one of the ways that William defines it is what we just said is one of the ways, but another way is he says it's the ability or commitment to refocus. Right? So it's about assigning the power. It's about saying, yep, this is what I'm going for, and that's what I'm going to focus on. And then also it takes will to refocus, right? And we're going to explore that a little bit more in a moment. Now let's talk about another aspect, because if it takes will to live from your heart, what does living from your heart mean? Because that's another thing that we can sort of say over and over, you know, and it can become a bit blasé. Yeah, I choose to live from my heart, right? So what does living from your heart mean? What's that about? Karen?
I recognise that as living my true nature and purpose, who I truly am in my greatness, or yeah, I can't put it another way, but that's where I see it from.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's living your truth, right?
Yeah.
It's living your truth. Yeah, yeah. Carolyn, did you want to say something as well? Go for it. Thanks, Karen.
I was going to say, for me, living from my heart is a physical experience as well as a mental experience, because it has a feeling to it that just when I'm in my truth, that the world is so easy and light, and that's just not a mental thing space. That's a whole body, mind, spirit space. And there's ease. Living from my heart means living with ease and lightness and joy. And it's worry. So yeah, that's how it comes across for me.
And absolutely, you make a really great point, right? Because all of it is a feeling experience, right? So everything here. That's why I wanted to define will and living from your heart, because we can sort of throw these things around and come at it very mentally, and just hear the words and explain them to ourselves. But yeah, it is absolutely about experiencing, you know, the feeling. We've got thoughts and feelings on the one side, and we've got the emotion of the true end result. And that's what you're talking about. Living from your heart is like, oh, yes, I know when I'm there, right? So that's what I'm intend for you to experience by the end of this, is knowing when you're applying your will to living from your heart and when you're applying your will dysfunctionally. So let's talk about this whole dysfunctional thing. So, before we do, just step into a circle and just get for what you get for yourself. What are some of the blocks to you living from your heart? Right, before we move on, what are some blocks to you living from your heart? And just jot down literally a few words. So don't do a whole spirit guidance thing. Don't do a whole reading, but just a few words, a few phrases. I'll give you a minute or so to do that. Just gather your last couple of thoughts, and when you're done, just look up at the screen so that I can see that you're finished and you're attending, so that we can move on so you don't miss what I'm about to say. I'm almost feeling like being a teacher saying 3, 2, 1, pens down. I don't even know if teachers still say that. All right. So I'm going to pose a couple of terms to you, because I think that these will really start to, your superconscious will start to work on this when I mention these. So think about willful. Claudia says 1, 2, 3 eyes on me. Is that what teachers say these days? I love it. I might use that. All right. So think about the word willful versus willing. Willful versus willing. Willpower versus willingness. So willful versus willing, willpower versus willingness. And I bet that you can already start to feel the two ways of using your will, right? Because you can be willful. You can use your willpower in the world. And there are a lot of people who achieve a lot using their willpower and being willful. Do they burn out and end up with heart attacks? Most likely, or end up in burnout, adrenal failure, no, what's that called? Sorry, that's not what I meant. The word just escapes me. With adrenal overload. Is it adrenal? Yeah. So when you've just overworked yourself, right? So it is possible to achieve end results. Adrenal fatigue. I think that's what I was referring to. Yes, thank you, Hester. So it is possible to achieve end results using willpower and being willful, right? We can't deny that, and that's why we can get sidetracked, especially without having a reflection, without having a community to reference to, community or coaches, that can keep you on track, because it can appear as though you're creating end results, but they're not necessarily end results that are leading you to your land of plenty. Because what's your land of plenty really about? Your land of plenty is about expressing your heart. It's how you feel in there, right? So it's no good if you've achieved your end results, if you've ticked off all your choices and gone, yes, women's groups, tick, this program, tick, coaching business, tick, a holiday in Bali, tick, a house at the beach, tick. It's no good if you've achieved all those things and you're absolutely exhausted and you haven't actually enjoyed any of them. Right? And so what's really important is to notice when you're towards the beginning of this fork, when you're here, going on that track towards achieving results using willpower or being willful, you want to notice here and refocus, rather than notice when you're already here in a state of adrenal fatigue or mental asylum or whatever it is, right? So if you think of being willful and using willpower, what are some words that are associated with that for you? What might be some words or some actions? Polly?
Stamina.
Say that again. Stamina, yeah? Using your stamina, yes. Yeah, that can very well be. Thank you. What else? Alex? Lost the mute button.
Determination, endurance, effort.
Yep. Yep. Drive. Yeah, all of those. Thanks, Alex. Anybody else got some words? I'm just going to flick through. I've got Kay, the other Kay with red glasses, Kay. Yep. And Adriana?
Yeah, forcing or forceful.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Trying to force end results or being forceful. Absolutely. Adriana?
Passion.
What did you say? Passion?
Oh, no, this is the opposite. I'm talking about willpower.
Yeah. I think passion's probably aligned with the other way. So hold on to that
willpower,
one.
I mean. Yeah, I thought it was about it.
Yeah.
So willful is discipline.
Yeah, disciplined. Yes, that's another one. Absolutely. Thank you. And we'll have Fiona.
Wendy also had a hand up.
Cool. Fiona and then Wendy.
I also had stubbornness and perversity.
Yeah, great words. Yes. And Wendy? Thanks, Fiona.
Manipulative, and you're kind of empowering the fear, I feel.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about manipulation in a moment. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, absolutely. So there's all these things that are associated with willpower. And the thing is that in today's society, as we know, a lot of those things are quite admired, right? If you have grit and determination and drive and all of that, or if you can manipulate situations, if you can work the situation is the terms that they would use, because manipulate's probably not an accepted term, although we know that that's exactly what's happening, right? So yes, exactly. So hopefully you can get a feel for what that's about, right? And what to avoid, because this is the stuff not to do, not to buy into. What I associate with using will dysfunctionally is something a little bit different. So all of those things as well, but something else as well. Words like I need to, I should, I have to. And there's others, but they're the three that really come to me, right? So it's like, I need to be more disciplined. I need to be more organized. I should eat less, right? So if you're talking about your health choice, I should exercise more. I have to organize my time better. You know, so they're also words that are associated with misusing will, right? Because then you're forcing yourself, you're manipulating, as you said, Wendy, right? So it's about, when you misuse will, you're focused on process, you're focused on preparing. So if I want to be healthy, I need to do this, or I shouldn't do this, you know, all of that stuff. Or you're catering to circumstances, or you're catering to other people. So that's another way. So as well as the whole thing of drive and determination, another way to misuse will is by focusing on the process, or by focusing on catering to circumstances, trying to make sure that certain things happen or certain things don't happen, or that certain people are okay, you know, all of that stuff. And of course, it's all driven by our thoughts, feelings, definitions, and meanings, right? The first few steps of a conflict deconstruction, which is why it's such a great tool for uncovering the shadow, uncovering the egoic agenda. You know, conflict is just so useful for seeing what's going on. Because when you've got these words, these thoughts that come up as a result of your definitions and meanings, or when you've got definitions and meanings coming up as a result of your thoughts and feelings, then you're immediately taken on the wrong track, right? So we've talked about words that come up, and I like to do words and actions because it means that you can recognize it when you're going around about your normal day, right? It's all good to come to a training and go, oh yeah, that was great, I got so many insights. But then, or to do your choices and go, yeah, that felt wonderful. And then you go about your day, right? And it's like you've got the training time and the choices time, and then you've got the rest of your life, right? So what I like to do is to encourage you to recognize the language and the actions that you can know. The moment you're doing it, the moment you're thinking it, you can go, ah, there I am, right? And use your will to refocus, to use your will to put the power on the functional use of will, to put the power, to put the focus on your true end results, not the false end results. So we've talked about the words. So what are some actions that you might take? So they're going to be actions that are designed to make you feel more comfortable, right? So when you're using your will dysfunctionally, they're actually going to be actions that are designed to make you feel more comfortable. And it may seem like a bit of an oxymoron, because some people will say, well, no, when I'm being driven, you know, that's not comfortable. But it is. There's something you're milking out of that, right? So when you're being driven, when you're being determined, when you're being stubborn, all of those things we just mentioned, or when you're doing I should be more organized, so I'm going to create this calendar or whatever it is, or I need to eat better, so I'm not going to eat this cake. Like, so when you're doing all those things, you're actually making yourself feel better about yourself, right? So rather than focusing on the true end result of your land of plenty, what you're doing is you're making yourself feel better about yourself. So if you've got like number 8 tendencies, you might use your will dysfunctionally to gain control. Okay, that's another thing that might happen. If you're sort of in the 6 category, or if you've got 6 traits, then you might use your will to align with or rebel against authority. Right? If you're a 3, we've already talked about it because that's kind of come up to the surface today. If you're a 3, you might use your will a lot to achieve lots of things, but lots of things that don't matter to you. You know, they're just for status only or to make yourself feel better. Right? Number 1, you might apply your will dysfunctionally, so your willpower, or become willful. You might apply your willpower to getting things perfect, right? Using willpower to get things right. But it's all dysfunctional, right? So I wanted to bring that up to the surface so that you can just tune into where this might show up for you. And we'll do a little circle soon. I don't know why I'm calling them little circles today. Spacious circles, big circles. We want lots of information in our circles. We'll do a little exercise soon with a giant circle, a big expansive circle. But first, I do want to touch on manipulation, which Wendy mentioned before. Because there are 2 things that come up around will and manipulation. And Robert Fritz refers to this. I think it's Robert Fritz. I read so many books at once that I lose track of which one's which, but I'm pretty sure this is in Robert Fritz's. And that's will manipulation and conflict manipulation. Right? So another thing that we do dysfunctionally is will manipulation is when you tell yourself how great it's going to be when you force yourself to do something, right? So I'm going to force myself to go to the gym every day, even though I really don't want to, but I'm going to use my willpower. And then I'm going to be strong and fit and thin and whatever, right? So there's a distinction there between that and a true end result of health and vitality, or whatever that choice might be, right? It's a different energy. So that's what we're tapping into here, the difference in energy. So will manipulation is when you tell yourself how great it's going to be when you've done this thing, right? Conflict manipulation is when you tell yourself how horrible it's going to be, how bad it's going to be if you don't, right? So you're effectively manipulating yourself. You're manipulating yourself into doing something that's not necessarily aligned with your heart. Right? So rather than taking an obvious action, if you feel the energy difference between an obvious action and taking that and the ease of that and going, oh, I better do this, I should do this, I must do this, because if I don't, I'm going to be really fat and I'll never achieve anything, or no one's going to like me, you know. That's manipulating yourself. So that's another thing to be really aware of when you might be doing that. Right? So the reason that it's important to be aware of these things is because none of them work, right? So all of that stuff is egoic. When an action doesn't come from an obvious wisdom, from the energy that's derived from the energy of the true end result, when it doesn't come from that, when it comes through trying to force yourself to do something or force an end result, it's going to be egoic, and you're going to end up in either an oscillating or a stuck structure. Why? Because as humans, we don't like to be forced to do stuff. We don't like to be forced, even if it's you that's forcing yourself to do it. We just don't like it. We don't resonate with it, right? We're going to at some point rebel against it. And it's a memory came up when I was thinking about this. Like when I was a kid, I used to sometimes make my bed, right? And I remember this, it was like the first time that I realized, you know, I had some kind of an inkling that there was an inner part of me that wanted to do things, and then there was an outside force, outside energy that wanted me to do things, and that I resisted that, but I really loved doing this. So what I noticed one time was I was about to make my bed because I was like, yeah, I really want to make my bed today, right? It's like I felt the true end result, and it wasn't like I should. I just felt the true end result of going into my bed that night and feeling being all nice and smooth and nicely made, no dirt on the sheets, you know. So I was like, I'm going to make my bed and I'm going to make it really, really nice, just for me, just for its own sake, right? Which is what our choices are meant to be. And I started to make my bed. And then I heard my mum's voice from outside my room going, I hope you're making your bed. You better make your bed today. And the moment she said that, guess what happened? Who wants to have a stab at what happened the moment someone said to me, you should make your bed? Karen.
Straight away you do the opposite.
I didn't want to do it.
No.
Exactly. Yeah, stopped. I did. Thanks, Holly, in the chat. Yeah. I didn't want to do it and I stopped it. I went, no, I'm not doing it, because it was no longer for me, right? It was no longer for its own sake. It was like, oh, this outside thing, outside force. And what I wanted to highlight to you is that sometimes you can be your own outside force by manipulating yourself. Okay, so when you're trying to force yourself, or when you're trying to force an end result, you're misusing your will. You're being that voice, that parent, that well-meaning friend, right? Giving advice. And you will end up with an oscillation or a stuckedness, because unconsciously you're manipulating yourself and you're at the same time resisting your own manipulation, right? This is how screwed up it can get. So with all of that said, let's do a circle. Let's do a little exercise, a little tune-in that you can do for yourself so that you can experience this, right? So the circle is going to be, what I want you to do is step into your victim. So be in the energy of your victim, in your victim energy, or your wounded or not powerful self, and step into an end result, but in that state, right? And just notice what comes up. What do you think you have to do, need to do, should do? What do you need to control to get that end result? So basically, when you're in your egoic state, when you're in your victim, what are you doing? What are you driven to do? What are your thoughts, feelings, and definitions and meanings? Your egoic state, what's it driving you to do in relation to this end result? All right, so I'll give you about 2 minutes. So just draw a circle about yourself. It's a circle of your end result, but you're stepping into it as your victim or your wounded self. Your intention is to get, how are you using your will in your lower vibration? How do you use your will in your egoic state, in your lower vibe? And just gather your last thoughts and know that you can always add to this. I'll give you about another 30 seconds or so. Right, let's have a couple of shares, and those who aren't sharing, you can still keep writing for another couple of minutes. Let's have a couple of shares. What did you get in that circle? Karen, Fiona, and Tracy.
Okay, the first things that came up for me were I have to get it right. There's a right way to do it. Others do it better. Not good enough. Look outside of myself for help. Others, the net. I need to know how. They're all the things that come up for me.
Mm-hmm. And so what are some things that you do then? How do you use your will then in those things? So do you use your will to then go and find out how? Do you what do you get busy doing?
Oh, what do I get busy doing? I start off okay, but I get very distracted. You know, like I start off okay, whatever I'm doing, and then all of a sudden I realise I'm caught up in this egoic chatter. It's not what I'm meant to be doing. And I keep flipping from all these extra things. It's sort of I suppose the main thing is just looking for help from other people, you know, like watching other people, how are others doing it, you know, like whatever. Yeah, it's more like that.
Okay, yes. Yeah, so you're kind of going, okay, I'm going to find out more.
Yeah.
And and get distracted. Okay, thanks, Karen. And I forgot who I was going to, who said Fiona, and then there was somebody else after Fiona. Go, Fiona.
Yeah, so mine is relating to a physical choice, so physical activity. And what came up for me in the circle was just the whole coping with pain. It's going to hurt, you know, suck it up, don't listen to my body, push through the pain. And then also there was that search for, you know, more information, more experts, more coaches, more how to do things, because, you know, I just don't know enough. Obviously I'm doing it wrong. I don't know what I'm doing. So there's that search to kind of make it right. So
yeah. Okay, and you can get a feeling of that obviously in your body as well. You can get the energy of that.
So yeah, that feeling of approaching my training like with the expectation of suffering rather than approaching it as, you know, with say joy and the joy of the end result in mind. So there's that attitude, very much so.
Yeah, good one. Yeah, and that's a great distinction. Thanks, Fiona, for sharing that. Yes, because you can focus on the pain and go, I've got to push through the pain, or you can focus on, oh wow, the end result. Yeah, so in this circle, that's what you're doing. Great. And I think the other person was Tracy. Was that right?
For me, in the victim, the first thing is about capability. And then in the tension of focusing on the end result, I get busy. And I get busy doing everything and anything. And then that's not enough because I then try and seek all tension, resolve all tensions. I get busy sorting out everybody else, and it loses total focus on what the end result is. And then I kind of think, oh, well, I never achieve anything.
Yeah.
And it's exhausting.
Yes. Yeah. And I bet that while you're doing it, you're convincing yourself that you're using your will to do exactly what's needed, right?
I'm achieving things.
Yep. Yeah, because that's what happens, right? That's what happens. Absolutely. All right, so let's move on. Thanks, Tracy. Thanks for sharing. That's the great 3 very different shares. That was awesome. Oh, Paul, I saw your hand up. Let's have one more. We'll have one more from Paul, and then we'll move on because we want to have plenty of time in the functional way. Go on, Paul.
Thanks, Beata. What came up for me was that it was almost like making up for a lack, that I don't have it. I'll relearn, I'll reread, I'll do more preparing. I might downgrade or reformat or reframe what it is that end result might look like. And that leads me to a lot of self-judgment, or it can do in the victim space, and procrastination. I get overwhelmed because I get stuck in that kind of hamster wheel of, of creation, but not in the right direction, it stops being in the direction of my heart. And in the victim space, it's all about compensating, making up for loss.
And when you're in that space, how are you using your will? Because I bet that you are. So there are times when you use your will dysfunctionally. Can you pinpoint what it is that you do?
One of my biggest challenges is actually holding on to my will and applying it. My own number is a 9, and that's one of my biggest issues. Is where I can lead to just devolving my power rather than holding on to it, and therefore, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Hence, on the call today, it is to get more of a sense of will and that awareness, to be ideally in the every moment, the awareness of, after hearing something, the space between then reacting either from my self-deprecating, compensating old beliefs and tendencies, or taking that moment, taking that breath, holding my own truth, space and grace, and going, no, this is where I'm going, because that's where my own end result is. So it's easy to say, it's another thing to apply it. And that's why these spaces are so important for me. And I'm sure everyone else who's put the time today. So thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Paul. And I hear you. I'm a self-confessed 9 predominantly. I mean, I'm not going to box myself as that, but I have a lot of 9 traits, tendencies. And yes, nines are very special people. And when it comes to will, right? Because we're not even allowed to know what it is that we want, right? So we don't even, we just get taken off track by anything. So we're basically, for the 9s amongst us, it's unlike everybody else. For the 9s amongst us, it's more other people's will that we're drawn by, right? We sort of go, oh, that person wants me to do that. Oh, yeah, that sounds all right. And it's that. So yeah, it's a whole, not other kettle of fish, but it's a different colored kettle of fish, if you like, right? So, and of course, it's all, all this dysfunctional stuff, it's all designed to keep you safe and sane, right? Safe and sane. That's what it's for, right? So let's step to the other side. Let's step to the side of where we use will as the mechanism to assign power, right? To focus. Because that's what we need to do, right? So assigning power is basically assigning our focus. What are we focusing on? It's kind of like magicians, right? They have the magic wand. This is something when I was nutting out this key principle with Ed the other day, and he said something about the wand, like the magic wand. What is it? It's how you focus your power, right? You point it at something, and it's like all your focus, all your energy, and I mean all your energy, right, is directed towards that single point. Single pointed focus. That's how we achieve true end results. Single pointed focus, and only action steps that align with the specific thing that the wand is pointing at, meaning your choice. Right? So assigning focus is one thing. I mean, it's one thing to point the wand, right? So we've got the choice, or we know what the choice is, but then of course, as I said at the start, we've got to take action, right? And your subconscious is always watching, like, what are you taking action on? Are you taking action on this, on just resolving tension over here, which we've just spent a bit of time talking about? Or are you taking action towards your true end results? Because let's face it, like every action is resolving tension, but are you resolving it just to make yourself feel better? Or are you resolving tension in favor of your true end result? Right? So you don't want to be buying into the agenda of your thoughts and feelings. You want to be buying into the new end result, into the energy of that. And it takes will. Why does it take will? I said at the start, why do people do it dysfunctionally, apply will dysfunctionally? It's because feels the normal way, right? So why does it take will to focus all our energy on our true end result? Because it takes will to do something before you know what you're doing. Right? Because your true end result, anyone here whose land of plenty is exactly the same as your life now. I'm just going to open up the gallery. Whose land of plenty is exactly the same as your life is now? Yeah, I'm not seeing any hands up, right? So your land of plenty is different to what you have now, which means it's unfamiliar, which means it's unknown. Right? And it takes will to do the action steps to head towards it, because the action steps are going to be also unfamiliar and also unknown. Right? So you're going to feel like you don't know what you're doing, because you don't, because you haven't done it. You're heading towards a new land of plenty. Right? So you're going to feel like you don't know what you're doing. And it takes will to do stuff when you think, when your mind tells you that you don't know what you're doing. It's absolutely untrue, you know, and part of the journey is that you learn what you're doing as you do it, right? But we must use will to take that step, and the next one, and the one after, and the one after, all the way to the end result. And this is one of the realizations that I had, that I posted in my in the post with the surfboard just the other day. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. And it's just that, right? It takes will to take that first step, and the next one, and the next one, and the one after, all the way until you achieve your end result. It takes will to align with your truth. It takes will to align with your heart, right? And to do what's required, not what's familiar. It takes will to not do what you've always done. Even for us number 9s, it takes will to not just look at what everybody else is doing and go along with what they're doing. It takes will for us to exercise our will. Right? So you've got to not do what you've always done, even if your ego is convincing you that you've been doing it for a good reason. Right? I saved that money for a good reason. Right? If it's not the true action step, then it's not true. And you must not keep doing what you think and allow space for something new to occur, for something new to come to you, right? It takes will to do things differently. Because there's the two states, right? So there's the state where your thoughts and feelings want you to do one thing, right? And then the emotion of your true end result. I've done this back to front. So this was my true end result hand. So your thoughts and feelings want you to do one thing, and the emotion of your true end result wants you to do something else. And will is how you choose to do the something else, right? So will is the commitment to do whatever it takes. It's the commitment to do whatever it takes, however, whatever feelings and thoughts it stirs up within you. It's the commitment to going, now I'm going for this end result and I'm going to do whatever it takes. So what are some ways to use will functionally? So you can exercise your will, right? Rather than forcing your will onto others, you exercise your will. You stand for something. You make a stand for your truth. You make a stand for your heart, right? No matter what's going on around you, no matter what everybody else says. You take that bridging action, no matter how crazy it seems, no matter how irrelevant it seems, you take that bridging action and you stay focused on the end result, right? You don't give in to circumstances. You don't freak out. And I've got an example that happened today, in fact. It happened today. So I had this key principle of the month to run today, and I've been super busy, so I wasn't really prepared, but I thought I've got all day today to pull it all together, right? So I wasn't too worried, but I've had, I'm leaving to go to Europe in less than a week, and I've got 3 days away with my son between now and then. We've just launched a magic cauldron, which starts tomorrow, and so there's been all this stuff. So this key principle of the month was kind of not coming up as the obvious next thing to do, but I had it on my thing. I'd already, tuned into it. I already knew what the topic was. I already had some brief notes, and I thought today I'll get it all finalized, right? I was on my laptop last night. I went out last night and got home about 10:30, and I had some questions about this program that Ed and I have just launched. And so I answered those, turned off my laptop, went to sleep, woke up this morning, pressed on, nothing. Pressed on again, nothing. And I'll keep it long story short. So about half an hour of trying various things, the obvious stuff. And okay, this isn't happening. I think my laptop is dead. And made a couple of phone calls, and amazingly, after it's almost 4 years old, and I said just the other day, actually over the past week, I've kept saying it's time. It's obvious that I need to get a new laptop, but I'll wait until I come back from Europe, right? So, but it was obvious that I needed a new laptop. I didn't take the action steps, so it died on me. Anyway, amazingly, after almost 4 years, it's turned out that it's under warranty. But of course, that involved doing various things. So at 3 hours before this session began, I had my new laptop, and I just finished setting it up. Right. So it would have been so easy for me to go, all right, I'm just going to change the time of this session. I'm not prepared, and I don't even have a laptop that works. Right. But I knew it was true for me to do this because I got it. When the moderators were asked to come up with a key principle of the month, I got that this is the one I'm doing, and I got the date, I got the time. So it's true for me to do this, right? So was it comfortable? No. Was there a part of me that wanted to freak out? Yes. Was there a part of me that could have given into the circumstances? Sure. However, all the way through, I held the end result. So at 6 o'clock Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time, I will be on this call and I will serve this community powerfully, right? And that's will. It wasn't about forcing myself. It wasn't like, oh, far out, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. Like I used my will to stay in the emotion of the end result. Going, I know how it's going to be when I deliver this key principle of the month, right? And here it is, right? So that's what using your will functionally is. It's about that. It's about not giving into circumstances. It's about not freaking out. It's about staying focused on that end result, taking the bridging actions, standing for something, standing for your heart, no matter what's going on, no matter what everybody's saying, and exercising your will to bring your heart into the world, right? Now, there's another thing that it's about, and it's about bringing your focus back, right? Because this isn't about never falling off, right? It's not about sort of staying perfect, staying on focus. It's not going to happen, right? It's not about never falling off. It's about coming back in, right? It's about being able to notice when you're not focused and bringing your focus back without judgment, without beating yourself up, right? And we're going to do just a very quick 2-minute exercise on this. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you a picture with lots of stuff on it. And I want you to just quickly choose one thing to focus on and watch it. And every time your eyes wander off it, I want you to beat yourself up and go, oh, you stupid thing, you know, whatever you do. You've done it again. You've lost focus again, okay? I want you to do that for about 60 seconds. So as soon as the picture comes up, just pick one thing, and every time you notice your eyes moving away, beat yourself up about it. All right, go. Pick one thing. And then use your willpower, be willful to manipulate yourself. Go, oh, damn it, I've done it again. Force yourself to stare at that one thing. Force yourself to come back to it. And just take notice how you're breathing, what's going on in your body. Okay, and now you can choose the same thing, or you can choose something different, and we'll do it differently. Okay, so this time, choose one thing to focus on and just breathe out. And each time you notice your focus moving away from it, just breathe out again and just come back to it. All right, and hopefully you notice a bit of a difference there in the energy, right? And I'm going to, while we're on the breath thing, I'm being mindful of the time, but I do want to do this, and yeah, let's do it just quickly. See, it's holding focus. It's not about judging yourself and beating yourself up, right? It's about just coming back, right? And yeah, that's all I'm going to say on that. And you probably noticed that when you're beating yourself up, you're kind of up here in the breath, right? So what I'll get you to do now is just breathe in and hold your breath in. And notice how when you're holding your breath in, that's the feeling of bracing yourself, right? Willfulness, willpower. It's like, right? And now just allow the breath to leave your body. Just allow your breath to leave your body, and just keep allowing your breath to leave your body until it becomes obvious that it's time to breathe back in, and then only breathe in as much air as naturally wants to enter, right? Whatever's obvious. And then allow the breath to leave your body again, and just keep allowing it to leave your body, keep allowing it to go out. And when it becomes obvious, then you'll just feel that there's an amount of air that wants to come back in. And the reason I got you to do that, and it is very brief, but I encourage you to practice. Actually, Ed, I reckon what would be really useful, everyone meet Ed, my co-host and partner and a meditation teacher. Would you be able to do a little, because we are running out of time, would you be able to record a little meditation of sort of getting into that and out? Because I want to talk about it, but I'm not going to have time to do that. Yep, cool. All right, so if you'd like that, just reach out to us. So the reason I wanted to do this little activity is because I think it really illustrates the willfulness and the willpower and will. Right? Because will is about creating a vacuum, creating a space for the obvious actions to come in. Right? It's not about just taking action. It's about creating that space. It's like that breath out creates a vacuum. You know, like a vacuum cleaner. You don't have to put the dirt in a vacuum cleaner. Right? There's a vacuum inside, and it just naturally sucks the dirt up. Right? So when you create a vacuum within yourself, a vacuum from your thoughts, feelings, definitions, and meanings, when you can allow all that to empty out, then the obvious action occurs to you. Then the obvious action comes in. And then, so you must use your will to empty out. And then you must use your will to take that obvious action. Right? No matter how crazy it seems, no matter how irrelevant it might seem, right? Because will is what's needed to make truth non-discretionary. That's really all you need to do. When you make your truth non-discretionary and you use your will to do what's required, then everything else falls into place. Right? And that's the bottom line here. Right, so I'm going to leave you with that. And we've got just enough time for a few shares at the end about what's landed. Apologies for going just a little bit too close to the ending time. But I'd love to hear what's landed for you and what did you get out of it. Polly, I'm seeing your hand up right now. And then Fiona.
When you say use will to empty out, I see the metaphor with a vacuum cleaner, but in practical way, what do you mean by emptying out?
Well, when you do your conflict deconstruction, for example, and you surface your shadow, your thoughts, feelings, definitions, and meanings, it's about using your will to not buy into that, to not take action from that feeling space.
Mm.
It's about going into innocence. So by emptying out, I basically mean going into innocence, right? So it takes will to go into innocence, because all those thoughts, all those feelings, you know, in that busy picture, that's what our life is like. There's stuff coming at us all the time, right? So it's using your will to leave all that, put it to the side. That's why we bring it to the surface, so that you know what not to buy into. And then with that over there, you've got an empty circle of innocence, and then you can receive the true action step that's aligned with your heart. Yeah.
Thank you. And what
Cheers,
landed
Polly.
for me was the circles from the looking the end result from a victim perspective. This was fabulous. Thank you.
Awesome. Yes. So now you know what not to do. Thanks, Polly. Fiona?
What's really landed for me was when you first said those words, willful versus willing and willpower versus willingness. My first response was, willful and willpower. That's where the power is, and that's what we want to be, and that's that's where we need to be. And willing and willingness is soft and wishy-washy and pathetic, basically. But as we've gone through and discussed it and looked at the words around willful and willpower and seen that even my first response was a manipulation of myself, basically, to force myself into things. And now I'm looking at willing and willingness and seeing that it's about flow and about simplicity and about that vulnerability that William talks about, of accepting that your end result might not happen, but you're still going there. And I liked what you said about making truth non-discretionary. So my understanding and view of those words has really changed. So thank you.
Beautiful. And you mentioned the magic word, vulnerability, right? That is the bridge. That is the bridge between the two, is the willingness to be vulnerable and do things when you don't really know how it's going to turn out. You don't know how it's relevant. You don't really know what you're doing because it's all new, because your land of plenty is not what your life is like now. Yeah, absolutely. And with that comes that flow and ease. Yeah. Thanks, Fiona.
Yeah.
Great share. And a great sum up of the key principle. Yeah. And I'm happy to hang around for another few shares and any questions that people might have. But I would love to just remind you of the purpose of the key principle of the month. Okay, so this is what you want to carry through the month. And we'll meet again in 2 weeks. I'll put up the event in just an hour or so. And so that we can debrief. And you can share how that's been going, how it's been landing, what's changed as a result of you carrying this principle through with you through the month. All right, so that's our time. But as I said, I'm happy to hang around for another 5 or 10 minutes for extra shares and any questions that people might have. And if you need to go, then thanks for being here. Thank you for sharing the space, and thank you for your intention and bringing your energy here and being with us. All right, so who else would like to share, ask questions, or anything at all, anything that's landed? Ursula.
Thank you, Beata. It was fantastic, this session. And like Fiona, my first impression, my first thoughts when you said willpower and willingness, it was exactly the same. Okay, yes, willpower, this is where I'm determined, I'm powerful, I go for it, I'm persevere, and then it landed at the end that this is not where I need to be. I need to be in that softness, and the end result, it should be flow. It should be is the flow, is the gentleness of it, and just being in that will. And what landed really for me, that metaphor of emptying out. And I think I also, like somebody else here on this call mentioned, that they were traveling and I was traveling, and I did my choices every day, but sometimes it was like half-assed because I had the ski conference and the skiing, and I was in a hurry, and I did my choices, but it was like da 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 da, and then the actions, that the bridges they were coming up, they were junk bridges, I believe. So it's like, what? I got confused. So the lesson, I suppose, is that it doesn't have to be long, it could be short, but just doing with the heart, just clear all your shit basically, and allow the wisdom to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Because yes, your subconscious is watching. Where are you putting the power? What are you focusing on, right? And that's exactly it. We said will is the mechanism of assigning power, of assigning focus. So when your subconscious sees that you're assigning focus to busyness, the conference, the skiing, and all the other stuff, which is wonderful stuff and probably part of your choices, but at the same time, it's you're not assigning power to doing your choices powerfully. Therefore, often you will get junk bridges. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's very useful. Thanks, Ursula.
Thank you.
And Joanne.
Hi, thank you so much for today. It's been amazing. What's really landed for me is how dysfunctional I have been using my will, even as far as my choices. You know, so often it's like, oh, I have to do my choices today, and you know, trying to create a discipline within myself to do what I need to do. And it's only listening to what you've shared that I've realized that there's been this inner resistance to doing what I need to do, and the willingness to do it has been overshadowed by all of that. So to be able to sit back into the ease of willingness, I think is what has landed the most for me. And now I get to play with that and to see how I can really activate my will and use it as it should be used, should in a good way.
Yes.
So thank you.
As it's intended to be used. Yeah.
That's it. That's the right wording. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you make a really great point, Joanne, because I often hear people say that I have to do my choices, or I should do my choices more often, or I should, yeah, as opposed to how would I love my life to look? And what's the obvious thing to do towards that? It's a very different energy. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Wendy.
Thank you. So what's landed for me is I've always had a challenge with will. And so just bringing in that refocus for me is so powerful. Instead of like whipping myself to do something or beating myself up, just refocus, go into innocence and receive whatever action it is and do it. Just do it with love and joy. Because this past week I've been like, I have this choice about health, as we usually all do. And like I'm going out and I'm walking, and I usually love my walk, and I usually, love being in nature and everything. And I've noticed this week, like I'm just pushing myself and I'm not enjoying it. And so this morning I thought, okay, that's it. I'm going to love what I'm doing. And I know the health is going to come. And it was so totally different.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I've never seen health come from a space of I should, right? Not the kind of health that we want, right? Yeah, absolutely. Love what you're doing. And from that, everything else falls into place. Exactly. It's that simple, right? And this is why we spent most of the time on the dysfunctional way today, because the functional way is really simple. It's just like, yeah, I've fallen off. I've lost focus. What would I love? Refocus. That's it. That's it. Because beating yourself up, well, I haven't got that as one of my choices. I don't know about anybody else. Anyone got like beating yourself up in your land of plenty? Yeah, let's not do that. Cool. Thanks, Wendy. Great share. Eve, do you have your hand up on purpose? Yep.
Hello. Thank you for everything. I've just come to the conclusion, I feel that I really need a coach and I need to, I really choose to have a coach, and I choose to attend Alchemy for Success so I can move forward, because I'm just so, I've really created a home base that's the longest I've lived anywhere in my life. And I really love it. And I feel like it's my truth. However, I can't see past it. And it's also, yeah, it's starting to get a bit intense for me here. You know, the survival stuff, the pleasing the landlord stuff.
Mm.
And I feel one way, but I'm getting a different response from him, and he's been pretty fabulous. But without going on and on about it, I'm just trying to sort of give you an insight. I really feel like I want to focus on those two things as my end results. And of course, those things cost money, and I'm a volunteer. So for me, I'm going to also, I've been choosing to have the end result of having more money. And I feel like I know that might be a cop out for a lot of people, because they're choosing how it has to be. And so is it really truthful for me to choose it? Which brings me back to thinking I need a coach, because it feels good to choose the end result of having lots of money so that I can do these things. But I'm a volunteer, like I said, heading towards 60. Yeah, so I am chasing my tail a bit. I think I might be a bit of a 9. I certainly do have struggled with, you know, not knowing how, and I'm here because I'm trying to understand better the whole application of will. But what I'm finding conclusively today is I really don't know what to go for. I really don't.
Yeah, you made a really good point, Eve, and I hear this a lot, so I'll address it. And I know that those people here that have been around for a while will agree. And that is that inevitably, like William always goes on about, you know, everyone should have a coach, everyone needs a coach. And I remember when I first started, as probably a lot of people did, I sort of thought, oh, nah. And then the next thing came in, as the space where you're at, where I went, yeah, I think I choose to have a coach, you know, because you use the word choose rather than I need to. And that's a really great distinction, right? Choose, that's using your will, as opposed to the manipulation of, oh, I need to, I should.
Oh,
so
yes, I'm
the
always
next thing,
choosing.
yeah. So the next thing was that I said, I choose to have a coach, right? And of course, that wasn't in my budget. But inevitably, everyone here that's got a coach is going to vouch for that. Inevitably, the moment you sign up, the tension increases, right? And the money comes in.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but it does every time.
A lot of the things that are happening in these courses, though, is paying up front.
Yeah,
And
I'll stop you there, Eve, because we're on time and I don't want to go too far over time, but I do really appreciate your share.
Yeah.
And you made some really good points, right? And the thing is to set your end result, whatever it is, right? And take the obvious steps towards it. Use the structure. Come to the practice sessions to begin with, you know, and you'll get some insights. And then when you start taking those steps, then you'll see. Just reach out. What's the obvious next step? Maybe to reach out to some coaches and see what happens from there, right? It's about, like I said in my surfing post, it's about having the vulnerability to take that next step. Just the one step, right? And then there's another one, and then there's another one. But if you never take that one step, you're not going to see the next one.
Yeah.
So take the first obvious step. That's all you need to do. And just keep taking them until you get the end result, because you will. It's inevitable, right? It's inevitable if you make truth non-discretionary. Thanks, Eve.
Thank you.
Now I'm just going to open up. Is there one more share who'd like to take us out? And the steps may not make sense immediately. Absolutely. The steps may not make sense immediately. Yeah. Okay.
I
Adriana, take us out.
Hi everyone, thank you for this amazing session. It's given me really more clarity also of my willpower, which I'm aware of, but I was not so aware like today with your session. Thank you, Beata. And so I actually recognized how much dysfunctional will I was taking it, and then realizing actually, yes, it was dysfunctional because of the result of it. And then when I just let it go and just being and not forcing myself, oh, I need to do this, I need to finish this, I can't go there because I need to finish my choices or whatever, I let it go and just surround it with what I love, right? I like do what I love, just go swim or whatever. And then suddenly it happen things afterwards, like when I let it go and just being in this moment. And then suddenly, okay, I get phone call from, like nowhere, very, like someone very important. I was like, who am I? And it was funny how I was ensuring that how it's happening to me of the power, because the person was saying, I don't know how I took my time to call you, like, and then I realized, oh my God, like this is the energy, the powerful energy, what is right when we finally do what we love, and the energetically we're wired to the right people. And so I was like, wow, that's interesting. She said that. That's what like confirmed me that I'm doing the right things to do what I love first, and then all align somehow by focusing on the end result. It was really, and you just like show me here that yes, that's true, how important it is to focus on the end result and take the small step what we love, not what we must. Because funny enough, I realized also
cool. I'll stop you there. I'll stop you there, Adriana, because we are well over time. And thank you. That was a perfect share to finish off with, right? Because it shows that you can feel the difference. You can feel the difference between the two ways. And that was my intention for you and for everyone in this space today, is to feel the difference when you're being in the dysfunctional use of will and when you're in the energy of what you love, and using your will to take those steps with vulnerability, in innocence, and heading towards what you love, right? So take that into your month. I'll see you in a couple of weeks for a debrief, and we'll have a lot more shares then. I'll see you in 2 weeks, and remember, every day, remember, will, right? That's what the key principle of the month is for, so that you can use it, you can apply it in your everyday life, not just during your choice making and not just during the sessions here and trainings. All right, everybody, thank you very much. Apologies again for going over time, and thank you for sticking with me. Lots of love, everybody. See you again soon. See you in 2 weeks. Unmute yourselves. Yes, say hooray, say goodbye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
See you, Carolyn. See you, Paul. See you, Ursula, Claire, Holly, and everybody else. Take care.
Bye.